Hello and welcome to episode 16 of Critics Anonymous. I'm Robert Garza.
And I'm Caleb Kilian.
And we are two idiots who have no business critiquing anything,
but are giving our opinions on everything.
We would like to welcome all of you to another episode of our From Home series.
Longing for a good night out? We are bringing this episode to you from the comfort of our homes.
We wanted to recognize two very important people in our lives with this episode.
Joining us today are two women that have played integral roles in our lives.
We welcome my mother, Jessica, to the podcast,
as well as my mother, Sandy.
We will be asking them insightful questions about motherhood
and their funniest and most embarrassing moments as mothers, probably about us.
So sit back,
relax,
or bake some cookies,
and listen to us get mom-chicated. Super excited to have the moms joining us today, but before we have them join us, we need to do our back label advertisement. And much like last week, because of our current quarantine situation, Robert and I have both brought beers for this week's segment. Robert, kick us off.
Yeah, so I got the Peach Golden Ale from Four Peaks Brewery out of Tempe, Arizona. Little known fact, Arizona grows some prime peaches. This delicious golden ale is infused with the refreshing fruit to give you all of the peach with none of the sweet.
It's clever. Don't know if I love it, but it's clever. All of the peach with none of the sweet.
I don't know how I feel about that. Like, why wouldn't you want the sweet, though? Like, I've never heard anyone say, like, oh, I wish this peach was more bitter.
Yeah, but do you want sweet beer? I mean, I'm not a total sweet beer person.
Well, I'm not either, but I don't know. It feels like if you're going to have a peach beer, I feel like
I guess you would think it was, yeah. Like it's going to be sweet.
It's like you know what you're getting into, you know?
Right. You opted for this. You wanted it.
No, I know, but I didn't. So as I said before we hit the record button, it wasn't until I was getting ready to sit down to record that I realized there was no back label. So yeah, this was kind of a little of a roulette, I guess you can say, where you just, stick your hand in the thing and pull the trigger.
Yeah,
and
I feel you.
You get what you get. So I mean,
how's the actual label? Is the label appealing?
Oh wait, you don't peel peaches. Never mind.
You can peel peaches. It just gets a little slimy.
If you can take out the sweet, you might as well be able to peel it, right? I will say no. The can's really cool. It's funny because if I didn't know that these were peaches, I would think they were oranges or pumpkins, like rounded pumpkins. Because like pumpkins have like the ridges, and they usually do the ridges.
And these don't have the ridges. Like the emoji used for like butts or something? They kind of look like butts.
That too. So this is a butt beer. This is butt golden beer. Ale. Butt golden ale from Four Peaks.
All right, I'm gonna be real. I love Four Peaks, and I think they have a great peach golden ale. I think it's a very good beer. That can is not super impressive to me, and I would have kind of expected more for Four Peaks beer, but
yeah, same. Yeah, crisp, vibrant, peachy.
But it also makes me wonder, because didn't Four Peaks get bought up by Anheuser-Busch to do not the actual brewing, but all of the can
distribution?
Yeah, and distribution. So maybe they didn't really have a huge say into the actual can design. Maybe they did. I don't know.
Maybe, but I still feel like, you and I have had enough just Four Peaks in our lives. Kilt Lifter is a beer from them.
I mean, that counts.
But I think we've been there plenty of times, and I feel like I have seen this logo in the same picture, so I don't think it was too far-fetched. I think maybe it's just that it didn't translate well to a can.
Oh, that's true.
You know?
That is true, because I do
'Cause,
remember
like,
it on the big sign. Like, that looked pretty good
yeah,
on the big sign. So, yeah, maybe it's just not a small print situation. Maybe it's just a little too
yeah,
busy or
like
something on a small
it
can.
just didn't translate too well. So, but we'll go with 3 for me. But let's see if you can do better. What do you got?
So this week, I was in a little bit of a similar situation as you were. I was a limited supply, so didn't have a ton to pick from. So I actually picked the Swami's IPA from Pizza Port Brewing out of Carlsbad, California. We have been brewing Swami's IPA for over 20 years, so to finally share this in a can is a dream come true. Whatever your form of meditation is, we hope that each and every sip contributes to your own self-realization. Cheers!
Oh, cheers to you, buddy.
I liked it. It was good.
It sounded very beer label-y. Which, I mean, isn't a bad thing. I'm just saying it, I guess to me, it just sounded very beer label-y.
I will say I'm going to give it more props than I probably normally would in a normal situation, because out of the very limited supply that I had to choose from, this was really the only thing that had any type of back label on it. So I got to give it a little props on that. It is kind of funny that not very many beers have back labels. I feel like they're just like giving up. They're just like, nope, we don't want to be creative in that way.
Yeah, it's weird. You would think that would just be standard, but then again, I don't know if I've ever actually like noticed the back labels too much until we started this podcast.
That's true. I mean, I've definitely had beers. I remember beers before that I like read the back labels, and it was just like a fun little tidbit, and that's like a cool piece of information. I just think, obviously, on the big domestic beers and like all that stuff, like nobody wants to read a back label about Budweiser or something like that. But on these kind of cool little, smaller breweries, I guess it would be cool to have that kind of thing. I will say I'm totally digging the label, the actual label for it. It's so it's called Swami's IPA. So they have this. I hope I'm totally not wrong on this. They have a Indian snake charmer that is playing his little snake charmer flute, but instead of a snake coming out of the basket, it's a beer tap that is then pouring the beer into the beer glass, which I thought was super clever. I think that's like super cool. So I will say for the actual back label, I'm going to go 5. But for the label, I'm going to give it a little extra props, and I'm going to give it a 7 on the label, because I think it's pretty little snake charmer. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, from what I can tell, it looks cool. The color scheme looks kind of cool.
It looks cool. It was cool.
I know. I hope they really believe me.
Yep. You're convincing everybody right now. He's just like, I don't like IPAs, and you always get IPAs. So I just don't want to give you any more IPA love. It's all right.
No, I mean,
I will just drink my IPAs all by myself.
They're growing on me, but yeah, just not my jam.
Fair enough. So, as all of you know, or should know, Mother's Day is May 10th, and we felt that there was no better subject for this week's episode than to bring our mamas onto the podcast. So, to kick us off, we have Miss Jessica Garza, the wonderful mother of our very own Robert Garza. I know I am excited to hear some embarrassing stories about Robert. So welcome, and thank you, Jessica, for joining the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I also invited and asked you to be here.
Oh, hi. Thanks for having me.
She doesn't really, she's talked with you enough. She doesn't want to talk with you anymore.
I know, right? She's like, ugh, you again.
I've had enough of you. I've had to deal with you my whole life, and well, your whole life, I guess, technically. There was a time before you that you weren't there, and that was a great time for her, probably.
Nope, didn't happen.
It didn't.
Well, regardless, we are here talking about the wonderful lessons of motherhood and being a mother. So I'll kind of kick us off. What were some of the crazy expectations that you had going into being a mother? For those who don't know, Robert is the oldest of his 4 brothers. So he was the first one to come into the world and give you the wonderful joy of motherhood. So what were some crazy expectations that you had, and maybe some expectations that didn't really live up to what you thought?
Well, I think when I was pregnant with Robert, my fear was really just not to mess it up, and really felt, I guess, really excited because he was our first. We had lost a child before him, and the doctors had said that we weren't that I wasn't probably going to be able to have children, and he was wrong. We'll just throw that out there.
4 boys later. Good Lord. Yeah, he was wrong.
Yeah. So at the time, just really excited that I was pregnant, that I was expecting. And we did not know if he was a boy or a girl. So there was just more excitement there in, them not knowing. I guess in a way it was kind of like, even though I had kind of babysat cousins and my own brothers and other people's kids, it was still kind of, I guess, unsure if I was going to be able to raise a child of my own, and had kind of a TV version in my head of what being a mother was going to be like, and that did not come true. Not with 4 boys.
Like good, bad?
Let's just say "Leave It to Beaver" was not our theme song.
All right, yeah. Okay.
Oh, it's funny. So if it wasn't quite what you not wanted it to be, but not what you expected, if it wasn't that TV moment, what were some of the biggest, I guess, lessons learned that you had to go into and be like, yep, I didn't know that was coming down the pipeline. That was a big lesson.
I think right off the bat, when he started teething, learning that it was okay to put whiskey on a baby's gums when they're teething so that they could go to sleep.
That explains
a lot.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising. So Robert's father's family is very superstitious. And the other thing, too, is whenever the babies are cranky in his family, they have this thing with the egg. And I had never seen that before until Robert was born. And he had an aunt that was constantly blessing him with an egg to ward off any bad.
Wait, what?
I need more information on this. I don't know anything about this.
Yeah. So I guess in Spanish it's called ojo, and it's kind of like if a baby gets stared at too much, that it'll unsettle them and make them cranky. And so she would take an egg and she would like bless all the babies' foreheads with an egg, and then she would kind of say an Our Father, and then either go bury the egg or put the egg underneath their bed. And that was really unusual for me because I'd never seen that.
I did not know that was a thing.
I mean, I guess that's why I'm so excellent.
Boo. Insert boo voice here.
I couldn't resist, sorry.
We went through a lot of eggs with Robert.
Whoa! That took a turn.
I guess that's meaning that Robert was a little cranky as a child.
Yes, he was. He was. So between being attacked by spirits as a baby and teething, the Jack Daniels really came in handy.
I would say that might still do the trick, actually.
It wasn't later until I learned that Benadryl did the same thing.
Whiskey and Benadryl. Yeah. Sounds fun.
That's a good combination right there.
So many things make sense about Robert now.
I don't know how to take that.
I know, me neither.
Robert has a love for whiskey. It's a Started from childhood.
I mean, I don't have a love for Benadryl, so that sounds like a fun game, though. You know, what's going to happen first? Am I going to pass out? Well, I guess either way, you could pass out. Never mind. But I will not be stuffy or congested.
You'll be passed
Your
out, but
nose
you can
won't.
breathe well.
Yeah,
Yes.
my sinuses are so clear.
So kind of moving forward through life, you had Robert, who was obviously a cranky baby that we just found out, which I think is awesome. But you had 3 other boys. There was Aaron. Let me see if I can get this right. We had Robert, and then we had Aaron, and then we had Jacob, and then we had Cody. Did I get that right?
Yeah. So Robert was an only child for about 2 years.
Best time of my life. See, that's why I was so cranky. You know what? That's why.
Because you were an only child?
No, because I knew what was coming.
I don't think your mom knew what was coming.
See, the spirits were trying to warn me. See, oh, this is making so much more sense now.
Ooh.
So tell me
Alright.
tell me some of the fun challenges raising 4 boys. I mean, I can only imagine how that was. I have a sister. I had no brother. I have a lot of guys in my life that I consider brothers, but I didn't have to live with them 24/7. So I guess it's not quite the same thing. So how the heck did you get through raising 4 boys?
They were fun. It was there was never really a dull moment. Robert, Aaron, and Jacob are 2 years apart, and then there's 4 years between Jacob and Cody. So there's kind of what we refer to as like the before Cody years and then the after Cody years.
Yeah, BC.
So Jacob was like the baby of the family, and Aaron was the middle child, and they both carry those middle child, youngest child traits. Yeah, there was it was always an adventure, and Robert, being the oldest, had figured out how to get out of everything, which was now it was just somebody else's fault.
Isn't that the advantage of being the oldest, though?
He kind of like throw up his hands and do the whole up, wasn't me.
It very rarely ever was, though.
I would have to say, while you may not have participated in the act, you were possibly the major influencer.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
I agree with all of that because that has not changed to this day. Robert may not be involved with whatever is going on, but he's involved with what's going on. He may not have hands on it, but he's involved in what's going on.
Yeah. He's the one whispering in the ear.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder what you would do if you did that. But they were, since they were all boys, it was a constant, trying to keep them busy doing different things so that they'd stay out of trouble. Not that always worked, but there was always things, whether it was indoors, outdoors, and Aaron and Jacob remember their younger years fondly as doing chores. But Robert always managed to get out of chores and yard work. To this day, we joke about, if somebody says, I'm going to go in and get something to drink, that they're always referred to as Robert. Like, yeah, Robert, we'll see you in 3 hours. Because that was his thing. Like, he'd come in to get drinks, and we wouldn't see him. And then he'd come out with like a pitcher of tea or a pitcher of water. Like, okay, look what I made. And we're like, it took you 3 hours.
It was always very good, though. It was delicious.
Okay, side story on this. My sister was famous growing up. We always had to do dishes at dinner time. So the kids would go and I would go into the kitchen and I'd start doing dishes. And just magically, every night while doing dishes, my sister had to go to the restroom. And we just never saw her again. She just never came back.
She'd come out to dry the last plate?
Yeah, it'd be like 3 or 4 plates later, and almost done. And yep, she would come out. Okay, yeah. I'm ready to do dishes.
There's always one in the family, I guess.
Seriously,
Robert's ours. I just never knew what to expect with them. I mean, there's like so many stories, and I don't know if Robert's ever talked to you about us living out kind of in a rural area, and we had horses and ducks, and the only thing we've never had was chickens and goats.
Or goats.
I'm still hoping one of these days we'll have them. But when we first moved out here, see, there's just so many stories. There's just all kinds of craziness.
I think it's perfect. We need to hear the funniest stories. I want embarrassing
Well,
stories.
There was a time that I came home from work, and the sitter was sitting kind of outside, and all four of them were covered in mud. And so where we live is kind of clayish, and it was summertime, and so it had gotten hot, and so she just kind of felt like, okay, I'm just going to let them get wet. They were just covered in. I drove up, and they're just all covered in mud, and
The mud war.
They kind of,
it was a mud war.
The clay stained their skin, and so they were this weird kind of color for a couple of days. I mean, that's just one example.
So good.
I mean, it's not every day you drive up and your kids are running around almost naked, covered in mud in your front yard. But that's how it was.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's how.
I should say, so because of where we live, when it rained, especially like during monsoon season, it always flooded. We used to call the yard like Lake Garza because it would flood so much. I would say what, 1 or 2 inches of water, Mom? Try
4 to 6.
Okay, in some parts of the yard, yes. But so this was after one of those rainstorms, and yeah, so it was like good mud. It was good mud.
Because there's a difference between good mud and bad mud.
I mean, like you got like dry mud, and then you have like, or not that sound, but like splat.
That would be really bad mud.
That's a very different kind of mud.
That's a very different kind of mud. We don't want that kind of mud.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got home and literally hosed them off outside with the water hose because they were just covered.
Yep. Even Cody, who was only like 1 or 2 years old.
He got mud.
Yep.
You put mud all over your baby brother?
No. He was in the line of fire. So, collateral damage. I don't know.
Yes. That's how that works. Mm-hmm. That's how that works.
It was Jacob.
Yeah. I would say, I was just going to say, poor Jacob always pretty much got the brunt of Aaron and Robert because Cody was a lot younger. And there was a time that I came home and they had given Jacob a haircut because they had covered his head in duct tape and then couldn't get the duct tape off, so they just cut his hair. And Jacob was devastated. He had really pretty hair, and people would say, "Oh, he looks just like a miniature Ben Affleck." Well, after they were done with him, he didn't look like Ben Affleck anymore.
This is why Jacob has super long hair now. He's so scarred from that experience. He's just like, I'm just letting it grow. Yeah. I'm just letting it grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And the story that they always like to tell is the time Jacob came running down the hallway with the Phillips screwdriver stuck in his head.
Definitely not a part of this. Definitely not a part of this. I want
this story. What is this story?
We had been cleaning the house and I was vacuuming in their bedroom and needed a screwdriver to clean the roller off. And they all left the room. And the next thing I know, Jacob comes back and he's got the screwdriver dangling from his head. I mean, it wasn't like penetrating. It was just enough to go in and stay in there.
Stick.
But stick, yeah.
Oh, the amount of heebie-jeebies that I have right now.
Stab.
What did you do to your poor brother?
Okay, I know. Here's what happened. Jacob and Aaron were trying to win brownie points with my mom. And so they both wanted to be the one to take Mom the screwdriver. And because Aaron finally was like, okay, here. And he gave it to Jacob. And it ended up in Jacob's head. And so Jacob starts screaming, obviously. Aaron runs away. And I'm just sitting there. My mom walks in and I'm like, Aaron. Like, I was like, I knew enough that I'm not taking the fall for any of this. No way, no how.
I feel like that you were involved somehow, but you're just not admitting it.
No. Other than it was probably, I think, my room. No, that not involved.
Yeah, but you were there.
So you were involved. If you were there, you were involved. That's the rules.
Nope. I was not the second gunman on the grassy knoll.
Oh, that's funny. So You being a very experienced mother, 4 boys. I don't know how the heck you did that. I mean, my parents did. My sister and I, like, we were stubborn ass kids. I don't know how my parents survived. I have no idea how you survived 4 boys. But is there any wonderful advice that you would give people like me, myself? I'm welcoming my first child later this month, which is going to be fun and scary all at the same time. What is the advice that you could give to help help me in my first journey?
I think as far as like actual advice, I'd have to fall back on something that my mother told me, which was kind of to take each day as it comes, and everything's going to be okay. And usually that was like when I would call her at 4:00 in the morning because I didn't know what to do anymore. I had given up. We were Robert and I were 20 when we had little Robert. So people today would say, "Wow, that's really young." Looking back, I'm thinking, "Wow, we were really young. What the heck did we know about raising children?" But during one of those cranky episodes, I'd call my mom, like, "I don't know what to do. I can't get him to go to sleep, and he doesn't want to eat, and we've already burped him." And she'd just say, "It's okay. Everything's going to be all right," and call me back at 7 in the morning.
AKA, don't call me at 4 a.m. ever again.
Yeah. But advice wise is just that, you know, there's no right way to raise kids. It's how you feel about whatever it is you're doing at the time. All 4 of our boys are very different. They have some similarities, other than blood and parentage, but they're very unique in their character and very unique in their likes and dislikes. And so what worked with one didn't necessarily work with the other, which led to a lot of our own frustration as parents, like, why doesn't this work anymore? And there were things that, you know, we would tell one and they'd be like, because mama said, and the other one would be like, why? And so there's no right way. Just be comfortable in what you're doing and know that in the end, it's all going to be okay.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to listen to that, and maybe I'll have to give you a call at 4 a.m. when I can't. You'll be like, excuse me, you need to not be calling me at 4:00 in the morning.
Robert can tell you I'm probably the world's worst at answering my phone.
Yep.
At any time.
I usually have to call my dad to get a hold of my mom.
You'll have to leave a message or send me a text.
I'll just leave a message of like my daughter crying. I need help.
Yeah.
All you hear is the baby crying, and then Caleb gets on the phone. How do I fix it? Click.
Yep.
Yeah.
You had 4 of these. Tell me how to fix it, please.
Give her some Jack Daniels and call me at 7.
Deal. I can do that.
Father-daughter bonding time.
Oh, yeah. Little whiskey for you,
yeah, and
little whiskey for me.
Don't put it in her bottle. You just kind of rub it on her tongue. In the bottle.
Okay, I'm glad that we got that clear. I was a little unclear about that, so I
started thinking about that, and I thought I better clarify. Dangerous.
All right, so this last question, I just want it known that I did not ask or write this question. This was a Robert Garza question. But who's your favorite child?
Well, I have to be really honest. I dislike them all equally.
I think that's the perfect answer. That is the perfect answer.
The thing you have to know about kids is that they're really cute from 1 to 2. And then from 2 to 20, they're a nightmare. And then after they turn 20, they start becoming cool again.
What age are you, Robert?
Moving on.
I feel like you're past that, right? You should be cool right now. Is that true? Is he cool yet?
All right. You know what? This is not what I signed up for.
Jessica, thank you for joining us today. This has been a really fun time. Appreciate all of the advice. I know for myself and definitely my wife, we're going to be listening intently because we have that fun experience coming very soon. So appreciate all of that advice, and happy Mother's Day.
Well, thank you very much. It was fun being on.
Thanks, Mom. Love you. Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, thanks, honey. Love you too.
It's like I'm not even here. BBB.
BBB.
So now that we've heard from my mom, let's go over to Caleb's mom, Sandy Kilian. Sandy, welcome and thank you for joining the podcast. We're really excited to have you joining us and even more excited to hear all about baby Caleb.
Hi, guys.
Baby Caleb was not a very small baby Caleb.
No, baby Caleb had the head of a watermelon. So I'm just putting that out there. And not
like in shape or size?
Size. Caleb was 9 pounds, 7 ounces when he came out. And for a new mama, it was like, holy crap, that thing is big.
So what you're saying is Kylie is lucky that she came into this world?
No, Kylie was bigger.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she was bigger and we were going the wrong way. So we stopped all that.
They just keep getting larger. We're not doing it.
That is great. Well, as you were carrying baby Caleb, so what are some expectations of motherhood you had? Like things you were thinking about, kind of worried about?
You know what? As a pregnant woman, first baby, you think, oh, this is going to be so great. And then, and you watch those movies where the parents are all harried and I thought, that'll never be me. I'm always just going to love my kids. And after about, Caleb was about 6 months old and I was working. And I was working for a commercial finance company. So suits and, men had to wear ties and jackets. And I go into a business meeting with all the account managers sitting at the table. And I look at my arm and there's a Cheerio stuck to my arm. And I knew at that moment I was not doing this thing right and that I would never be a great mom. So all I had was, I'm going to love you, but you may not survive. I don't know what to tell you.
And here you are, years later, with less Cheerios.
That was my threshold. Hey, they both survived.
So that's actually kind of funny because we were just talking with Robert's mom and she kind of said with 4 boys going to bed every night, as long as they were all alive, she was a success. That was a successful day.
Yep.
So it seems like that seems to be a continuous trend in the motherhood journey is like, well, nobody died today, so we're doing okay.
That's right. We're good parents. Woo!
That's so funny. So what would you say some of like the biggest lessons you learned were as a mother, either back then or even now, maybe?
The biggest lesson that you learn is that your kids are probably born the way they are born, because when they get older, you look back and you think, oh man, they were doing that at 6 months, especially boys. They're like, punching each other. And that starts really early for boys. And then it never really stops, or it hasn't yet.
Oh yeah, the whole, it's just a phase. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no.
It's an ever-evolving stage.
And so just knowing that your kids are who they are, and then trying to mold whatever you've been given into something that can get out of your house eventually.
It sounds like you're trying to make lemonade out of lemons is what you just said. That is great.
My job was.
Yeah, your job was to make sure that I could survive when you kicked me out of the house.
No. You get out of my house.
Oh yeah, it was just flat out. you can get out of the house.
So that, really honestly, as a parent, your whole job is to teach your kids how to live in the world and how to, be contributing members of society, which I always hate that because what does that mean? But to be able to get out and live on your own and, not be the dregs of society, that's really what a mom's job is, to just get you guys through all the bumps and bruises. And have you go and do your life.
That's great. It sounds like so much the same between both parents so far.
Yeah.
I like your mom.
So what would you say, being that I'm going to be a new parent and have a lovely little one on the way, what was the best advice that you were ever given as a young up-and-coming parent?
There was one time that I called my dad and I was just crying because everybody's like, oh, you need to raise Caleb like this and you have to do this and you have to do that. And my dad just looked at me, over the phone. He just said, who knows that baby better than you? And I was like, well, nobody. I know him. And he's like, then you raise him. And that was the best advice because you're going to get so many people going, well, if you do this and if you do that and and you know what, that might not work for that baby. So what you do for your first child may not be what people tell you to do for your first child may not be what works for you. And you have to take that child and you have to figure out what works for that child. And then you get the second child and everything that you thought, oh, I did this great for my first child. That's all out the window. And you're like, what do I do now? So you have to really know that child. And Caleb, when you were young, you were easier than Kylie. But then when you got older, she became easier. Well, maybe not. So maybe not.
So really what you're just saying is I'm the favorite child. That's really what you're saying.
That's right.
I think it's 50-50.
It depends on the day, because sometimes it really is. There's a favorite child.
Yep, that's how we grew up.
My mom disclosed to me too that it depends on the day and the child.
We don't want to be like that as parents, but sometimes one of you pisses us off so much that it's just like, I don't.
My favorite mom quote. No, I had two favorite mom quotes, and I feel like the first one probably most kids grew up with. The ultimate gut wrenching, rip your heart out quote for every kid. Mom, can you guess it? Do you know it?
I'm so disappointed in you.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Yep. Good Lord. That was like let me just rip my heart out and give it back. There you go. And then my favorite mom quote that I will remember for the rest of my life. I will always love you, but I don't always have to like you.
And then you do stuff like Kylie came home from school one day and she goes, Mom, my friend's parents are getting a divorce. And I'm so sad about that. Are you and Dad getting a divorce? And so I'm like cooking dinner and cleaning and getting all the crap done for the night. And I looked at her and I said, no, honey, not today. We're not getting a divorce today. So she took that to mean we were getting a divorce in the future. And I didn't find out for 6 years that she was harboring that, waiting for a divorce.
Just always prepared.
Otherwise, she always had a bag packed. I don't know where I'm sleeping tonight.
Yes. For all those out there who don't know, my sister is a genius, but sometimes she's too smart for her own kid. So.
Yeah, I have great stories.
Well, speaking of great stories, what would you say some of the funniest or even most embarrassing moments as a mom have been?
I'm not looking forward to this question at all.
Or maybe even Caleb related.
The one thing that I will say is when Caleb was in high school, he and his friends would drink. but they would go over to a friend's house and somebody was the key master. And if you went to the party, you had to stay all night and you couldn't leave. So the key master had the keys. So I'm like, okay, that's brilliant because, nobody wants your kids to go drinking and driving. But what's funny is Caleb thought we didn't know anything about it for like 4 years. And it's like, you go, I'm going over to Tawny's. I'm just going to spend the night. It's like, okay. And then later we're like,
it was not 4 years. That's a lie. I did find out
before you told us.
No, that's not true because I definitely came home drunk one night. It was the night when I was going over to Tawny's and I said, "Hey, Mom, I'm going over to Tawny's. We're just gonna crash there." And you go, "Okay, you're really gonna crash there, right?" Yes. What do you know, Mother? She's like, "Caleb, I'm not an idiot. I know you've been partying at Tawny's every weekend for like a month." I was like,
that's the other motherism. Every mother out in the world will look at her child and go, "I'm not an idiot," because the kids are like, "I'm so much smarter than you."
Yeah, I really.
My mom having 4 boys, I heard that a lot. Not always to me, but just in general, I heard that a lot.
So are you the oldest, Robert?
I am the oldest, yes.
Okay, so you're kind of the test baby. And then after that, parents are like, "Oh, I got this." Because you got all the attention and you were probably the good one. And then the second one comes along and just slapped her mom in the face and went, "Ha, ha,
ha." I wish my mom heard this because she would have already been like, "Yep."
That's exactly.
Because I apparently, if I remember correctly, I was the more calm baby growing up. But my brother Aaron had threw huge temper tantrums. I think she even said this as well. Like, he had terrible 2s until he was like 4 or 5. So, and maybe even later than that as well. But yeah, no, that's very true. And she said the same thing. You always think, "Oh, I got the first one down." The next one comes along, and you're like, "Nope." And then, because her and my dad, I guess, love punishment, they did it 2 more times. And, all 4 of us were basically raised the same, but they had 4 different experiences with us.
And you know what? You're basically raised the same, but if you're a smart parent, you know that the currency for this one is this, and the currency for that one is this. One of the things that cracked me up when Caleb was probably 4, maybe 5, he got in trouble. I don't know from what. And Dwight looked at him and said, "Hey, do you want a spanking or do you want to be grounded for 2 days?" Because, give him choices and whatever. And Caleb goes, "I'll take the spanking."
Whatever.
Dwight goes, "What?" And Dwight goes, "I'm going to swat you 5 times if you choose the spanking." So he's trying to talk him out of it. And Caleb goes, "I'll take the spanking." So Dwight takes me back into another room. He goes, "I don't want to hit this kid." And so the discussion was, well, he asked for it. Now you got to hit him. What do you do?
He literally asked for it.
I still stand by my ruling on that one because a spanking is pretty instantaneous. A little bit of pain, and then you're good. 2 days of sitting in the groundings, that was not fun. And you got super creative with groundings by the end of it, so it really did not get fun by the end of it. No cell phones, no internet. The best one was no electricity. No electricity. Try going to bed at 6 o'clock. That's lame. That's super lame.
Yeah, it gets kind of boring just handing out the same punishment. So, as a parent, you have to get creative. So,
no, the thing that really pissed me off is that it was no electricity, but I thought, well, reasonably, I can turn the light on to the bathroom when I'm sitting on the toilet. So I turn on the light to the bathroom and she comes by and knocks on the door and says, "Turn that light off."
Dang. I wish my mom had thought of that, or I shouldn't say I wish it. I think she wishes she probably would have thought of that. So I bet you when she's listening to this, she's going to be like,
Oh, yeah.
damn it, that was
You
a
know
good
what?
idea.
Parents do have this little secret society where we get together and go, what can we do to our kids to make them more? So all you kids out there thinking your parents are after you, they are.
Oh, yeah. First night I came home after a party was in the bedroom, and my mother thought it would be super hilarious to go in and start vacuuming at 5 a.m.
Okay, that was passed down from generation to generation because Grandma Clark used to do that. Oh, that was
See, my mom was the early breakfast with walking into your room and just throwing the curtains open, and it'd be, and it was always like, get up, it's time for breakfast, and you're like, it is 6 o'clock in the morning.
Eat. Yep.
Because it was always, I didn't wake up this early to make all this food for you not to eat it. Plus, we have stuff to do outside today. So, because we had 3 acres of land, so there was always something to do. So we could never get away with I'm bored.
Oh yeah.
Because my mom especially, she was always like, I got things for you to do if you're bored, and it'd be like, oh nope, I'm busy now.
Bro, that doesn't take 3 acres of land.
Caleb, do you remember when your dad painted your fingernails because you wouldn't cut your fingernails?
I have not heard this.
So I'll tell you the story. So Caleb, he would just let his fingernails grow so long, and he was playing football and all kinds of stuff, and his nails were gross. He would shower, but his nails were gross. So Dwight told him one night, he said, cut those fingernails or I'm going to paint them. And Caleb goes, whatever. And he goes to bed. So we sneak into his room and we paint his fingernails while he's sleeping. He cut them the next day.
Oh, yes.
There was also the infamous pick up your toys or I'm going to throw them away. And I didn't think that would actually happen. And then I came home and my toys were really in the garbage can.
Hey, tell everybody what happened with the Cadbury egg.
No.
You were very creative. I do have to say.
You were very creative. Was that
like
the cleaning? Was that the cleaning of the room? Was that the Yeah. The stipulation was that I had to clean my room, and if I cleaned my room, then I could have a Cadbury egg, and I love Cadbury eggs. And I didn't want to clean my room, so my parents then unwrapped.
No. What did we do first?
Oh yeah, you cleaned my room. Yeah, sorry, that was a key detail. You cleaned my room, and then you unwrapped the Cadbury egg and ate it right in front of me. They were creative. I mean, it's props.
Yeah.
They were creative. It was
See, and now you have ideas.
Oh yes, I feel sorry for my daughter.
You know what's going to happen though? You are at some point. Just think of me when you say this. You'll say, "I'm never going to be like my mom and dad," and then you'll say something to Chloe, and it'll be like, "Oh crap!" That's exactly.
Oh, it's already happening. It's already happened. We've already
even
had
as an adult. Even me, I find myself like, ugh, I sound like my mom. Ugh, I sound like my dad. Even with my brothers, we will say something, and then one of us will be like, "Okay, Dad." "Okay, Mom." and then of course that person's just like, "Damn it."
Yeah, it makes you feel really good when your wife says that too. "Okay, Dwight." "Okay, Sandy."
Yeah. Wait a minute, that sounds like it's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. She just acknowledges that I sometimes have similar traits, both good and bad.
Yeah,
and phrases.
And phrases. Mostly phrases.
In my family, it's phrases. Yep. All right. So the fun question. I know we kind of already talked about this, but who's your favorite?
It really does depend on the day.
She's doubling down.
There is never that, "Oh, I love you both the same." And it's not, I mean, they both have good traits. And so we were very lucky. Both of the kids worked hard in school. There were no crazy things that happened. So we were pretty blessed. So yeah, it depends on the day.
That's
and
fair.
if you take
That's
both
fair.
days, it's probably
I mean-
50-50. But I can't say I love them both the same. And you know what? Honestly, as a parent, you can't love your kids the same because they're totally different kids.
I'm still holding on to that. I have yet to get out of a car while it was in drive, though.
Sometimes really,
What?
really smart people don't have common sense.
My lovely sister may or may not have been in a rush, and she got in the car and put it in drive, and then my dad I can't remember what exactly it was, but I think he just wanted to say goodbye and said, "No, Kylie, come and give me a hug goodbye," or something like that. So of course Kylie, in her frustrated state, just gets out of the car to go give him a hug, not putting the car in park before she got out of the car.
And she almost pinned Dwight in between the garage and the car. He was quick enough to get out of the way, but she knocked the garage, not the garage, the side of the garage. That was a $1,000 bill right there. So, yeah.
Wasn't me. No $1,000 bills.
Yeah.
No.
She also got in multiple other accidents.
She was not a good driver.
So, companies
She's much
out
better
there,
now.
Her name is Kylie Kilian. You're not insured.
Every insurance company, nope. Sorry. Take the bus. Take the bus.
We heard the podcast's not happening. I'm sorry. Moving on. Her next deductible or whatever is like $2,000 or something like that.
$1 million.
They just come take the car away.
Yeah, really. You don't get a car.
No
The
driving
police
for
show
you.
up and they're like, they're just like, here, we're just going to give you this ticket ahead of time, just to avoid that hassle in the future.
Yep. Pre-tickets.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Mama, thank you for joining the podcast today. And I'll speak for Kylie and myself. We both appreciate you dearly. And thank you for a wonderful life and being our mom. You were the best, and we love you
So
for it.
let me ask you a question. How was I the best?
Uh-oh. You were just
Oh,
the best,
no. I
Mom.
wasn't example.
Put me on the spot. No, I will honestly say I never went through life thinking that I was not supported. You were ultra supportive. You were challenging even in that support, but I never once felt that you didn't support and love what I was doing, what I was trying to achieve, how I was trying to grow as a person, and you just always encouraged me to kick it in the next gear and just keep going for the next thing. And looking back at my life now and just seeing how well and blessed I've been, I attribute that a lot to you kind of having that driving motherly love factor to just keep me pushing, because I know I can be a stubborn pain in the ass sometimes and just not want to move forward on things. So
for all the listeners, that's
but I love you for it.
And you guys do good things with this podcast.
Well, thank you. We're trying.
Thank you.
Hopefully it's fun for others. We're trying to be a little bit of fun and
So
crazy
can I
times
do a
right
shout
now.
out for the sponsor? This segment's been brought to you by Blueberry Vodka. Every mother should try it.
Or I'll sponsor you and the famous Sandy's pineapple vodka that steeps in pineapple for like 3 days or whatever the heck you do. You could drink that like juice and just be hammered after like 2 drinks.
You gotta be careful with that.
Yep. But that is some seriously good stuff.
Yeah. Your moms know how to drink, you guys.
I learned that. I
Is
did
it possibly
learn that.
because we drove you to learn how to drink?
Yeah, but now you're all
Let me tell you what I had to do with this kid today. He
Yeah.
was just great.
But now you're all gone. We can drink for pleasure. Woo!
Woo! Well, thank you, Mama. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Happy
Thank
Mother's
you.
Day.
All right. Do good things, guys.
So, man, that was super cool to get to interview both of the moms. I know for me, I hadn't really. I think I've met your mom a total of like twice or something. So to actually like sit down and have like a super legit conversation with her for a good 20 minutes was really cool. And I found it really interesting that, I mean, I guess we kind of said this in the conversation before, but like both of our moms kind of had a similar sentiment of just like, kids are different and every kid is going to have their own personality, and you as a mother have to like figure that out and figure out how they go about that. And I know for me and my wife, like going into parenthood, that's kind of a really key important piece of advice, as it's kind of one of those like dumb moments, like, yeah, that's obviously true, your kid's going to be unique or whatever, but it's just one of those things when you hear it out loud. It's like, your mom had 4 boys, so I think there is like a point where you sit there and it's like, oh, well, they're all boys, they're all going to somewhat act the same to some degree, and yeah, maybe on some things they do, but I just found it really interesting that she found ways to really like distinguish and individualize all 4 of you so that you felt uh as individuals along as being the Garza brothers, if that makes sense. That's like a cool thing. I really think that's like a mom thing to do.
Yeah, and I mean, it just really goes to show you though that like, no matter how many books get written, no matter how much advice you can get, I think that is one lesson that you do have to learn as parents. Whether you have one child or multiple, I think that's just something that, I mean, I've learned just by also watching other parents, is just because it's a baby and it's a human and we were all babies and to most extent we're all human, you still can't, like there's no real formula to it. And I think that is probably the most fascinating thing about listening to them is, yeah, how similar, actually not even similar advice that they had, but even the similar stories that they had, the similarities between them, and how, they both, it's weird because as much as they talk about, the difference between their children, there is still some level of similarity even as parents, because they still went about it the same way. I guess we're willing to learn that or accept that, because I know I'm sure there's parents out there who don't accept that their kid is a different way, or their kid is not how they were, so they try to fit them into that mold, of maybe how they were raised or whatever, and that's where a lot of that tension maybe tends to arise. But I don't know. I think that's what just speaks to our moms and I think our childhood growing up, because it seems like we had very similar childhoods, but we're still very individualized. And I think our moms need to probably go and get like a couple of drinks together because they deserve it.
Good. Every mother ever deserves that. I mean, if you are a mom out there and you have raised children, you deserve free drinks for the rest of your life. Because I said it before and I'll say it. I was a stubborn ass kid. Like, I was a stubborn kid. So the fact that my mom like went through life and figured out a way to deal with that, and I still came out as like a halfway decent, productive member of society, that's some props. So yeah, moms.
Yeah, what's funny is it sounds like your mom had the same trouble my mom did, but she had 2 more kids. So you and Kylie must have been a handful.
Oh yeah. Well, I still just laugh because like I do think that I was, I was a very like, I was a stubborn kid, but I didn't do the why thing. So I didn't ask questions. If my parents told me to do something, I was like, all right, fine. Unless I didn't want to do it, then I would just be pissed and I'd be a pain in the ass then. But it was never why. It was just, I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? And so my sister was not that way. She was like brilliant. And I think honestly, she would just ask questions because she honestly wanted to know. She just was very intelligent child, and why do I have to do that? Why what's the point? What's your reasoning behind that? Why do we have to, what's the what's the intent of doing it that way? And seriously, oh my gosh, I could see her, like the veins in my mom's forehead would like start to like just, she'd be getting so mad. And it's like, because I just want you to do it, child. Go and do what I say. And I was like, oh, and my sister's still alive. She's going to medical school. There were no murders. So it was, it was good.
Yeah. No, I think when you look at like your typical childhood and you have the parent telling the kid to do something, I might have been the, well, why? But as my mom said, like it wasn't just the why, it was, yeah, but what if we did it this way instead? So then it turned into not, I'm questioning her, but I'm also like telling her how to do her job. So I think that is what she resisted the most, or I should say like was upset the most about me. And then you had, Aaron, who just, he was just no, and he would throw a tantrum and that he just wasn't going to do it. Jacob was very much the I'll do it, but when I want to do it. And then I think
Yep.
all of us, Cody was the one that was like, okay. So he would just do it.
He learned. He looked at all of you and he was like, I ain't dealing with that. I'm just going to do whatever mom says.
Yeah, maybe. But it's just funny because I think even as I look back, like there might have been times where because I gave my parents such grief about some things that they came at it really hard with like maybe Aaron. So then of course Aaron resisted and that's when he would get upset. And then they'd be expecting Jacob to get upset like Aaron did, and then Jacob just wouldn't get upset. He just wouldn't do it right away. And then with Cody, it was like, do it. And Cody's like, okay. So then it was more like, well, I was expecting this fight and resistance and it's not happening. So I don't know what to do. So I think we definitely kept them on their toes growing up, because I know it wasn't easy for them. Because I think we're similar, but we're four very different people. And I know we all responded differently to certain things.
Yep, for sure. So we heard a bunch of good stories from the moms, but are there any stories that you feel you need to share that are funny stories, that are embarrassing stories, but just are great moments in childhood?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's plenty, but the one that sticks out to me the most is my mom. I think this is where I get it from. Okay. My mom loves practical jokes, and she also loves like Halloween. It's one of her favorite holidays. And so this one year, as everyone should know by now, Robert is not a fan of clowns. Okay. And I've actually shared this story now that I think about it. But there was one year my mom had taken my brothers and they had all disappeared, and I wasn't paying attention. Didn't really like think too much on it. After a while, I was like, where is everybody? Like it just clicked. Like it's been a few minutes. It's been a good chunk of time. And as I'm thinking this and realizing how much time has passed, my parents' bedroom door flies open. Out come running these 3 hideous creatures that were my brothers, painted as clowns. She had done their makeup, gotten them the false noses, all that stuff, and she let them chase me around the house. I ended up in the fetal position on the floor of the kitchen. Aaron had taken a picture of himself on my phone and set it as my background. So that was the gift it kept on giving. And my mom just stood in her doorway and was like cackling. Like she was laughing so hard, it was like a cackle. And in my head, I'm like, this woman's evil. This woman is evil. And then looking back on it, I'm like, oh, she's so good. That was so good. Because had the roles been reversed,
that was fantastic.
I totally would have loved it too if it was not me on the receiving end of it. So like, no, that is definitely one funny moment is, a lot of people would think my mom was the serious one, I think, between my parents, but she also had this very playful side, and she still does. She still has this very playful side, as long as she is not on the receiving end of the joke or the prank.
She has to be giving it that.
Yes.
Mama Garza, you just gained so much kudos in my book. That's the best prank ever. I love it, and that's fantastic. I have 2 stories that I'm actually, and they're very different stories, and one of them will tell you again my mom's sense of humor and why my mom and I probably have a totally messed up, effed up sense of humor these days. And then the other one will just be a funny story. So the first one, when I was 8 years old or 9 years old. So backstory with this, I moved out here when I was about 8 or 9. Okay. So this was like my first birthday party in Arizona. Like I'm trying to make some friends and I'm trying to be cool and don't want to be weird and, yada, yada, that whole thing. Because that's really important when you're 8 and 9, right? So we throw a birthday party, and it's a bowling birthday party. Here's the issue. My birthday is literally the day after Halloween. The day after Halloween. So there is a limitless supply of very fun things that you can grab to just make that a hellhole. And we get to the bowling alley, and my mom disappears for a little bit. And then she comes back, and she has nerd teeth, like those effed up nerd teeth that you can put in your mouth, full on nerd glasses, pigtails that are all jacked up and all weird. She's got the full nerd suspenders and all of this stuff. And she is just playing the character hard. Seriously scars me so bad. I'm so embarrassed. It was like literally the most embarrassing thing.
I'm totally picturing it, and I love it. My mom would have done the same thing.
It scarred me so bad. And my friends loved it, and they thought it was great. And I didn't lose any friends, so I guess I can't really be that mad. But, oh, yeah, that was traumatizing. So story number 2, this is one quite a ways down the road. Little backstory on my mom. My mom is a very tall woman. She's like 6 foot, 6'1". I'm not really sure. But she's not super small as far as like stature, right? And I, as a young adolescent man, always wanted to exert my physical dominance and just try. And I was in wrestling and I was in football and yada, yada, yada. And you have so much testosterone when you're in your freaking teenage years, which is stupid. So I would always go up behind my mom at the point that I actually could, and I would bear hug her. It was the first time that I could fully get my arms all the way around her and just bear hug her, and all that stuff. So she kept saying, oh, I should tell the backstory of this too. Crap. Okay, backstory of this before I tell the ending of this story. A few years earlier, when we were all still I had 2 friends, my buddy Tawny and my buddy Dustin, who challenged my mom, and they tried to bear hug her, and my mom literally flipped them over her shoulder onto their backs. So my mom's kind of legit when it comes to that stuff. Like she knows how to like move some weight a little bit. And yeah. So anyways, this is a few years later, and I decided to bear hug my mom, but I'm much larger now. 2-3 years later, I'm bigger football player, wrestler, all that stuff. I bear hug my mom, and she says, I'm gonna flip you over my shoulder. I was like, no, you're not. You can't flip me over your shoulder. Just start doing the testosterone thing. Fantastic, right? So she tries to flip me over her shoulder. She gets me up onto her back and can't do the full flip. So we just kind of fall sideways, and I literally fall into an oven and sliced my whole leg up to like kingdom come. Just totally got jacked up. And my mom was fine. She was good. She got back up and she's like, yep, sorry you were stupid. So even in the moment that I was trying to be the big macho teenage kid, mom still won. Threw me into an oven. So that's out there for the world to know. My mom threw me into an oven because I was a jackass and thought I could outpower my mom. But she's crafty and we'll figure out the next thing to do.
I mean, my mom had the very Mexican response as a mother, and the first thing you can grab is what you throw. And I think between
is this a chancla story?
Between the 4 of us, I think we've all gotten hit with not just chanclas, but various.
Okay,
objects.
you gotta tell everybody what a chancla is.
For those that don't know, a chancla is just a sandal.
I didn't know what a chancla was when you first told me the story, and I thought it was fantastic.
that's
So I
funny.
want to make sure everybody knows.
So yeah, normally, especially like if you're out in public, you can't grab anything. You just take your shoe off and you either hit the child with it or throw it at them, especially if they're running. And my mom, like typical thing, first thing she could grab, whether or not it was her shoe, she would throw it at us. I think that I can recall there's only one thing that I have had thrown at me, and that was a brush. Except the brush didn't have the right length. Like her throw wasn't the strongest, but let's just say the bounce did the trick. I didn't know brushes could bounce. The brush hit the floor, bounced up, got me right in the sensitive area. And yeah, that was it wasn't even
Got you in the bits and bobs.
Yep, take me in the jewels, in the McNuggets. And I think that was the only thing I've had thrown at me. That being said, I have been hit with the fly swatter. I've been hit with a belt, obviously. Just the hand.
Spatulas. I always got spatulas right on the hand.
My mom loved to pinch too, and she always had like her nails.
Oh yeah.
Always. Even in sometimes like she'd get me in church. Like we'd be sitting there, and if she felt you were nodding off, she would pinch you, and you'd just be like, you're like, now I'm not awake. Now I'm in pain, but I can't scream or say anything because Jesus is going to yell at me. So
pinching makes me go into instant rage. Like I cannot, if there's one thing on this earth that just makes me go into instant anger, it is pinching.
Yeah. No, my mom was very good. And she'd go for like the spots that you'd like, she knew her. So like your side, your leg, then she'd pull my leg hair when I got old enough and got leg hair. Telling you, this woman, love her. But it's like, that's why when we got older, like it always, and I think Cody and maybe Jacob were the last two to realize this, but they never realized why we never sat near mom. Because if we said something that
I don't want to get pinched,
if we said something that she even felt was close to either disrespectful, obnoxious, or just plain stupid, she would pinch you. So we could get away with saying that if we were on the other end of a table.
That's awesome. Well, to end this on a happy note, what is a great reflective moment on your mom that there's no chanclas involved, there's no pinching involved? If there's something you could say to your mom now, what would you say to her for Mother's Day?
Well, obviously, I love her, and that one thing that I have learned from her over the years is just to keep working. My mom, and also she didn't like people in general, especially us, to kind of sweat the small stuff. And I think that is what's made me the same way, because my mom, she's a loving mother, and so was my father, but they both came from a very strong place of like tough love. And they were kind of honest, like the world isn't always going to be your friend. The world isn't always going to be sunshine and rainbows, but you can still have fun. You can still be who you are, and you can still grow up and be, I guess, a confident person. But you can't hold on to the small things. You can't let the little things also get to you. So I will say that that's one thing I've definitely learned over the years from them, is just, people are going to say some messed up things. People are going to do some messed up things, but you just need to keep going. I mean, my parents are also very stubborn at times, and that's also what's kept them going. My mom actually had her own company for a few years, and it wasn't always a success or anything, but she made it work, and she made it so that we always had food, we always had clothes, and we always got to do what we wanted. They were always honest about like, well, if you want to do that is not, it's not a necessity, so you need to earn it. If it wasn't something that helped us live, then it was something that we had to work for a little bit. whether that was, just doing chores around the house, or eventually as we got older, actually getting jobs of our own. And so it was also a way I think we learned independence. Because one thing they definitely didn't want for us is they didn't want us to stay home. Not that they were trying to push us out, not that they were trying to, like they didn't want us to be home or anything, but they wanted us to actually go and experience the world a little bit. My mom was very big on, you're not going to college here, you're not going to university here, you're leaving to go somewhere else. So she didn't want us, going too far, but she didn't want us to stay there. So we all went to college outside of our hometown, and yeah, it helped me grow, helped me mature, and I think it can say the same for my brothers as well. And I think there was a lot of lessons in that, but overall, it's at the end of the day, my mom's always like, I'm still your mother, I still love you, and this is still your home.
Yeah, no, I totally kind of have similar feelings. My mom was kind of my rock for my whole life, and even to some degree still now. I mean, I have a wonderful wife now, so she, takes on a lot of the brunt of that, which my mom's probably happy about. She's like, yeah, you can deal with his BS now, but yeah, for as long as I can remember, my mom has always been my rock, and just kind of that person that I always was able to confide in. I always, connected with her really, really deeply. And I kind of mentioned this before when we were talking with her, but she was always so supportive, but not in a way that was like, oh yeah, just go and do it. Like she was very constructive. She was very intentional about she was adamant about me going to college. She's like, you are getting your degree. I don't care if it's in basket weaving, you are going and getting your degree. She pushed me through times in high school that were just tough, and just growing up through relationships and all this stuff. And it was just, she was always someone who would comfort me when I needed comfort, but she would also be real when I needed to hear the hard shit that I didn't want to hear. And I just attribute so much of who I am to what she did for me growing up. And same thing. My parents had moments in their life where financially things were great, and everything was good, and they had times in their life where financially things were a little tighter, and we had to make some concessions. And I never knew the difference between either one. My parents always had a way of just making that stuff just seem natural and like life. And so I look back at that, and for me, what's been so gratifying is I continually find kind of nuggets and presence that she has given me that I didn't even realize, especially over the past year. I mean, my wife and I just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. Within the 1 year of us getting married, we got married a year ago, found out that we were pregnant. I had a major job change and moved from kind of a less ideal work situation to a very good work situation. And we're going to be welcoming our first kid here pretty soon. And yeah, it just, there's been so much change throughout this past year, and just the strength and resilience that she's kind of built and instilled in me, practices to deal with conflict and different things like that, has been unbelievably helpful in my personal life, in my professional life, in every aspect of my life. And so I can't say thank you enough. I don't think there's ever going to be enough thanks that I can give back to her to just, let her know that that's what she meant to me. But I'm so excited about the next stage of life as well. She's going to be a grandmother soon, and I'm so excited to see what that version of her is. I'm so excited to see what her and her granddaughter are going to be together. And that's going to be a whole new experience. And that's a different type of mother, you know what I mean? And I don't even know the presence and kind of nuggets of wisdom that that's going to hold. And so, yeah, I guess moral of the story is just for everybody out there who has a mom who you know that they've kind of bent over backwards and done everything that they can. Just whatever you can do, let them know that you love them. Like, let them know, because yeah, there's stuff that we will never know. There are things that our moms have done for us that we will
Mhm.
never know, and the sacrifice is real. So yeah, thanks, Mom. Cool. So I think we're probably going to wrap it up, but before we go, we do need to kind of give our beer ratings. So Mr. Robert Garza, what is your rating for your peach ale from Four Peaks?
4.
That's actually lower than I expected.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Just wasn't what you wanted. Wasn't hitting the palate right.
I don't know how to explain it. It's not bad, but I just I want something else. Like I want
Like if you're at Four Peaks right now, you would say this peach beer was fantastic, but let me please order
yes,
something.
exactly. That's what I would do. Like,
I feel
would I get it again? Sure. I wouldn't say, "Oh, that's gross." I know it wouldn't be my first choice, but yeah, no, it was. I'd give it about a 4. It's weird because it's like I think because I know it has peaches, I want it to taste more like peaches, which means it should be sweeter, and that it's not. I think that's what's messing with me. So I think that's
okay.
part of it.
So the peach without the sweet is that was
Yeah,
wrong
it's
move.
kinda it's like
Needed
I
the
think like
sweet.
they made this too much more for like a macho guy who's like, I can't have sweet beer, you know, because my ego is too big. But no, I think even a little more sweet it would have been okay.
We just lost half of our viewership. They're like, I love the peach beer just like the way it is.
I'm sorry, it's a 4 out of 10 for me. We can all
critiques, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. I'm gonna go a solid 6 on this beer. Honestly, it's a very good beer, and I would buy it again. The only thing I don't dig about it is there is a little bit of a lasting palate thing
Like
that
an
kind of just
aftertaste?
it sits on your tongue a little bit. Yeah, not a strong one, but it's I just it feels like my palate is just a little bit coated with the beer all the time. And sometimes I just kind of want, and I know it's an IPA and a lot of they linger a little bit and all that stuff, but this just lingers just a little bit more than I wanted it to. So good beer. I would totally suggest taking a sip of it, trying it, go buy a case if you want. Like, not saying that it's a bad beer by any means, but for me and my palate, there's just something that like, yeah, it's just a little, I don't know. I almost feel like Cottonmouth is like not a good way to explain it, but it's the only way that I can really explain
You know
it.
what's weird is this beer does the same thing to me. So
It's
like even when I'm drinking,
maybe it's like not the beer. It's like it's 103 outside, and they're just
or maybe
like
just
all beer is like effed
maybe
up right
just
now.
being home this whole time has just messed with my own palate.
That is true. I haven't been doing beer while I've been home.
Yeah.
Been doing a more of the bourbon trip
I
to
will say that is
keep the calories a little
I
bit
will say
down.
that is like the downside to this is that like beer selection is like low because you're forced to pick the same beers over and over again. And
That is true. I will say, I'll give a shout out. I did Total Wine's curbside pickup the other day, and there was a little bit of a snafu with my order, but it's totally not their fault. It was like the computer just effed up something and didn't put my name on the order correctly, but the order number was right, so they just had trouble finding it. But the curbside pickup was pretty legit. It was cool. You order it all online, and I actually like kind of liked it better than going into Total Wine, because you could like read all the descriptions of the wine and the beer, and you could make like some choices. It's not quite the same when you have all the beers like right in front of you and you can like be like, oh, that looks cool, that looks cool. So it's a very different experience, but I will definitely say in quarantine times it was good call on Total Wine's part. Good call.
yeah, because you're not like, when you look at the menu too many times and you pick something every time you look at it.
Yeah. Well, I've had that. I'm just gonna go with that. So
That's my downside too when it comes to picking things. This sounds good, but so does that. And that sounds wonderful too. I want all of them. I can't have all of them, but I can't pick one.
and then you just fall back to something that you like because you're just like, what if I don't like it?
No, I've done that too.
That's always my downfall. Is like, what if I don't like this beer? This is like a $12 beer, and I only get 4 of them. Yeah,
Talk about like commitment issues. You can't even just pick another beer.
Life of Critics Anonymous. Commitment. All right. On that note, I think we're just going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening, guys. Don't forget, Mother's Day is May 10th. So make sure you get the mamas a nice little gift. I know it's quarantine times, so just be creative, even if it's a phone call, and just letting them know that you care. If you have to go peek through a window to say hello and social distance, be safe with it, but definitely let the mamas out there know that they are loved and that we definitely appreciate them. On another note with that, to all of the moms working in any of the first line response, any of the COVID units, nurses, doctors, grocery store workers. I mean, so many jobs out there just kind of being hit hard right now that you never would have expected. But we just appreciate you. Thank you for the sacrifice. Thank you for everything that you're doing right now. I know there's a bunch of moms out there who have not seen their kids or their families in a long time, and just know we appreciate you and love you for everything that you're doing right now. This is a crazy hard time.
Yeah, no. So definitely happy Mother's Day, and thank you to all mothers, first responders, nurses, like you said. We are all alive and healthy because of people like you. So thank you again. But with that, hope you enjoyed this one. I know we enjoyed it. I had a good time just talking to the moms and checking in, So if you like us, even if you don't, go ahead and subscribe anyway. Rate us. You can find us on all social media outlets now. Oh yeah, we have YouTube now. Caleb set that up.
There's literally only like one video, but this podcast will be on that one, so it'll be 2 videos. We'll be doing good at that point.
Yeah, you can find us on everything: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Otherwise, criticsanonymous.com. There's also Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can find a podcast. We're there, but we love for you to connect with us, listen, like, subscribe, share, definitely share. And we'll catch you guys next time.
See you guys.